I think the clock ticks on every Real Madrid manager from the moment they take the job. It's going to
Yeah.
tick on him even more so when you're Carlo's age, when you're in Carlo's contractual situation. Um, like, I think there's a reality here, which we've talked about since the summer. Real Madrid will win things because they generally have far better players than the opposition. But this is not a team that was built as a team. We can mention Tony Kroos leaving, not being replaced. You know, the club being Carlo being told, oh, find an internal solution for Tony Kroos. Well, yeah, it's not that easy, right? Because I mean, unless you want to put Luka Modric in a time machine, you're gonna have an issue there.
Yeah.
Um, and then you add Mbappe to Vinicius, and 1+1 does not always equal 2 in football. Adding Mbappe to Vinicius means Vinicius, one of the greatest players in the world, has to change his game. And Mbappe, one of the greatest players in the world, has to change his game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So nobody's going to say, oh, I'm not going to show any sympathy for you because you've got Mbappe and Vinicius. That's fine. Nobody wants sympathy. But you have to realize that Real Madrid cannot operate as a team to the best of its ability. It will beat you. They will beat you because they have better players and individuals and Courtois and, you know, all these guys that have all this winning spirit and whatever. But this is not rational, right? I mean,
No. And they will get better anyway. This is like end of November, start of December. Comes March, they will sign a couple of players in January.
You really think so? Because all the indication is they will. I mean, I don't believe
Why would
them.
they not? They can't stay at this level. The more they play together, the better they will become. They will make adjustment in the squad.
No, about
in
signing
January.
players I'm talking. Because
They
remember
have to.
last year, this time last year, they said, no, we're not going to sign anybody. And then they didn't, and I didn't believe them. I'm like, haha, you're a bunch of Pinocchios. You're all lying. You will sign somebody. And then they didn't sign somebody. Like, what if they get it in his head that, oh, look, when Chouameni's back, he can be the extra center back. And look, this Asensio guy is really good. He did fine last night. I love the spirit. Not intimidated at all by Darwin Nunez.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, like, I don't know that I mean, they should.
Yeah.
But
I think they have the money. Maybe last January they kept the money for the Mbappe deal that was awaiting and coming up. So I don't know. I would think that they will invest. So they would get better and they will improve. But right now, it's not a good look. The defeat last night, the one against Milan, the first half against Dortmund, the game against Stuttgart. In the league, like you said, they're still too good anyway, even after the Clásico. The Clásico is really the only thing, and they're 4 points behind Barcelona with the game in hand against Valencia. So they can easily be 1 point behind for all the greatness of Hansi Flick and Barcelona so far. So it would not be that bad in the league. But in the Champions League, wow. And they've got Atalanta in 2 weeks' time. They can host Atalanta and get spanked.
Atalanta's away.
They're going away there. So
or given it's Atalanta, they could also win 3-0. But that's another issue. But no, and the last two are cupcakes. I think one is Salzburg and
Brest, the last one.
Brest, maybe not quite.
Brest in France.
Can you imagine it comes down to that?
Oh my God.
I don't know that they're going to make top 8. They'll be in the playoffs. I think definitely. Yeah. I think we're both very confident about that. But I think it is a question. I think it's getting to the point, just if you look at the longer term dynamics, right? Florentino's now 77, 78. Any new coach that comes in has to be aware that when you're at Real Madrid, you're not always going to make signings that are purely from the coaching side, but they're going to be from the star power, Stardust Real Madrid side.
Yeah.
Right. We've always seen this. Yeah. Going back to the Galactico era when those signings didn't make any sense, which by the way, I think is part of the reason in the Galactico era, I think they won the league once, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right? Zidane, Beckham, the original Ronaldo, Luis Figo, and you win the league once, right? And Zidane, Esi Pavones, all that nonsense, right? But they won the Champions League. And they created and it reinforced the brand. So I don't know. I think it's a warning sign. Taking it to Liverpool, I'm going to go back to, look, there's a lot of individuals I think you can highlight
pretty
from this
much
game.
The whole team, yeah.
I want to highlight Darwin Nunez because I go back to this, right? He will miss goals. He's not always pretty to watch, but he gives you 2 things that I think he can control. One is he's an absurd athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, his movement is actually really, really good. Like there's a real brain at work there. And then, the technique comes and goes.
Yeah, and I think Salah and Diaz love playing with him more than with Jota. Jota is a better finisher and a very smart player too, and a really good player. But I think for Salah and Diaz, they love having Darwin, all the running, all the movement, the intelligence, as you said, the combination and how they can play with each other. I think is good. And for a game like yesterday, I think when he needed to lead the line, it was against Rudiger. It's a big battle. You have also Asensio that you can go and try to intimidate a little bit. He's the perfect player. And on another night, he could have had a goal or an assist, something like that, be even more decisive. But I just love him. And yeah, he could still be better. And I think he's still young enough to improve some areas of his game. But I don't really understand the criticism around him either. Okay, maybe the fact that he should score more. Yeah, okay, but
it's just that when he misses, he looks really bad, as a lot of larger players tend to do.
Yeah.
All right. A word on Salah. I thought that move, that leg breaker that won him the penalty on Ferland Mendy, I thought, man.
It's Messi on Boateng.
This is special.
Yeah.
And then the penalty, he seems to hit it with the outside of his laces, which I guess he scuffed the ground, do we think?
Yeah, as well, a little bit. It's unusual because the one at Southampton on Sunday, he hits it with the inside of his foot. But the one he missed at Bournemouth last season was like that. Exactly on the same side. He tried to hit it with a lot of power, if I remember correctly. So, I don't know. I guess sometimes you change where you're going to shoot and the way you shoot to surprise the keeper. And even more maybe when he's a big guy. Not that Courtois is great on pens, but he's still massive. So maybe forced it a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the very general rule of thumb, when facing a large keeper who he has those long spider-like arms, it's more difficult to place it. If you blast it, then you give yourself a better chance against that kind of keeper. Arne Slot. I just want to remind people, okay, I did not think he was going to be this good. I will hold my hand up. I thought Liverpool were going to be competitive, but I had no idea. Okay, so this is a guy who the biggest club he has ever managed in his life, Feyenoord, right? This is a guy who is going to so he's making a huge step up in terms of magnitude of club. He's a guy who's replacing a legend in Jurgen Klopp. This is a guy who did not have the benefit of a single signing other than Federico Chiesa, who's hardly played,
which I think is
over the summer.
The best thing that could have happened to him.
You can say it's a good thing. I would say it is a little bit, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's certainly a very unusual thing.
Yeah.
How often do we see a new coach come in and they get no signings whatsoever, right?
That's why I think it was great for him.
This is a guy who persuaded Ryan Gravenberch to learn a completely new, who's been, a promising young player, kind of in and out, whatever. He taught him an entirely new position. And he has absolutely excelled at it this season. I'm not saying Gravenberch is the best, and I'm not saying Gravenberch is Rodri all of a sudden, but he's made so much progress, especially in terms of maturity. That was one of the knocks on Gravenberch. He's immature, right? And this is not a position he's ever played before. I think that is absolutely huge. He changes the formation of the club because he did not just come and say, "Oh, let's do what Klopp did," right? He changes the whole formation of the club into a different system, right? They kind of went back to 4-3-3 last night, but generally it is more of a 4-2-3-1, which again requires adjustments.
Last night, with Curtis Jones played in that very free number 10 role.
He loses his goalkeeper, who happens to be one of the best goalkeepers in the world, for an extended spell, which I think also comes into it.
True.
And he has 3 of arguably his 4 best players who are in the final 6 months or the final year of their contracts, which is not a good situation for a coach. It's not like automatic, oh, look, they're going to play harder because they want free agency. No. It's not an easy situation for them. Yeah. Against all those odds, they have a huge lead at the top of the table, which I believe is 8 points, could be up to 11 if they beat City this weekend. They're top of the table in the Champions League. I imagine the analytics nerds will say, well, they'll regress to the mean a little bit. That's fine. Regress to this. The guy's done a phenomenal job. Oh, by the way, and not a peep of controversy, not a peep of unhappy players. You literally have...
I mean, if you can't be unhappy when you win like that, though.
But it happens. Not everybody gets playing time, right?
Yeah.
There are other things that come into it. I don't think it could have been. I don't think it could have been any better this year.
No, and I will have to see, I guess, if they can stay at that level. I think they will play better as a team because there's still a lot of room for improvement. Yesterday, like I said, I think was maybe over 90 minutes the best performance that they've had this season. But can they keep winning and winning and winning like that? You know, I don't think people would give them goals like they did against Southampton at the weekend. And so that would be maybe the more difficult. But he's been incredible. I remember watching their friendlies in preseason, and they looked already really good. And I put them second in my prediction on the FC show because I had a feeling they would have a good season. That good, no, obviously no, and I think nobody could have foreseen that. But yeah, I think he's good, and I really believe that the no signing in the summer really played in his advantage. No players to integrate, no wars of egos between the guy who used to play there before and the new guy who wants his place. Just have to focus on your tactics. It's the same group of players, which is a very talented squad already. Let's be honest, it's a great squad. It's a squad with leaders already. It's a dressing room. You don't move. Everybody still sits at the same place. They have the same lockers. They have the same numbers. And I think that's also happening because you just focused on the tactics and what to change, slightly tweaks, and they were on board very, very quickly.
And I'll add one last thing to see us out in terms of what really impresses me. Okay, it's not like I watched every minute of every Feyenoord game over the last couple of years, but I did see them in Europe, and I saw some big games there. They play different from Feyenoord, which is another thing. He's not just different to Klopp; he's different to himself as well. And to me, that is hugely impressive.
Yeah. He was very good at adapting to the Premier League.